Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. We start talking the last couple of weeks about the first level of watching Allah and being aware that Allah is watching you, which is that those who are in a state of fear, in a state of being mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those are the Muslim or the believer who know the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His majesty, and they actually learn all this through the divine laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we explained last week that the one who know that Allah is watching him, he continue ascending in the still ascending in the level of righteousness and being away from what is prohibited until he reaches the state of being mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he actually will avoid anything that will have any tendency to lead him in the wrong direction, and he keep ascending in that state of being mindful of Allah until he reach another level, which is to do the right things because he is shy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that he is watching him at all time. And today inshallah we will talk about those groups who actually are mindful of Allah because they are shy of Him and conscious of Him watching them. And those who watch Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and know that Allah is watching him in secret and in public, those who are aware of the majesty of Allah, they are shy of Allah seeing him in doing a bad deed or a shortcoming. So today we're going to talk about what is it, this state of shyness, this state of awareness of Allah watching you, and how that lead you to ascend in the level, in the grade of righteousness. And the one who is shy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or shy to be seen in doing a shortcoming, is a state that the man will feel uncomfortable, will feel unease, as if he would be caught or be seen by Allah in that state. So that will entice him to stay away from all kind of shortcoming. And now, and this state of shyness and this state of awareness of Allah watching you is a result of a gathering of knowledge, a gathering of information, as that servant of Allah always leave that he is not doing well, not doing enough in his worship toward the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you know and you're conscious of the glory and the might of Allah, you always look short on your way of doing your worship, that it's not enough, it's not good enough. And that's a personal assessment, if you will, personal judgment for your own. an imam talking about a group of people when they do everything they can, and in the day of judgment they tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we did not fulfill your right of worship, of proper worship, of good worship, regardless of how good they did and how good they accomplished. So that servant is always conscious of the fact that Allah is watching him in his secret and in his public. So it's a state of always being hesitant of the correctness and the completeness of your worship and your duty, performing your duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with what he deserves. So if you in that constant awareness of Allah, that will create your state of shyness, your state of unease to do something wrong, in knowing that Allah is watching you. So being in that state of humility before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all goodness. It's a state of goodness, it's a state of righteousness. And that's what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, described it. And there is another description of that state of awareness, of knowledge that Allah is watching you. The scholar describe it as a very deep ocean of emotion. It have a heavy load, and to accomplish it you really exhaust a lot of energy. So this state of high awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was described by Ibrahim ibn Adam is to leave behind anything that have any closeness to a sin or a shortcoming. Leaving anything that it comes close. It's not just staying away from sins or disobedience or shortcoming, you're staying away from anything that will bring you close. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that the best of belief of a Muslim is to leave what he does not concern him, to leave behind what doesn't concern him. And to leave what does not concern you is to leave anything that can actually put you in the wrong place, because it's things that you don't need, things that you don't want, or things you can do without, in another word. But man have this tendency of wanna know or wanna be involved, like they always say, inquiry mind. So that one who actually leave this inquiry mind behind when it comes to any issue that doesn't concern you, he actually put himself out or away from shortcoming. And Imam Yunus ibn Ubayd said that that state of high awareness of Allah is to stay away from anything that can come close to put you in trouble or to put you in a shortcoming. And also to judge yourself at all time for anything that you do, anything that you utter, anything that you say or do. And Imam Abu Bakr Siddiq said that we used to leave out 70 doors of excuses to do things rightful, being afraid to fall in something unlawful. So we leave 70 doors of lawful issues that we can do, being afraid of falling or doing one thing that actually unlawful. So he's very careful. Even the things that it seems to be lawful, he leave it out if he can, to fear that he might be falling into something unlawful. And the Imam is saying a story of Umar ibn al-Khattab actually seen another companion, and he was carrying a piece of meat, and he told them, what did you get? What did you got? And he said, a piece of meat. We really love to eat some meat. We didn't taste it for a long time. And Omar said, is every time you want something or you miss something that you get it? He was talking about Umar ibn al-Khattab here, the man who is he is very this is the righteous believers who actually used to deprive themselves from anything that they would want of earthly manners or earthly wants and earthly needs, to save it for the hereafter. And the Imam is talking about just in Ramadan, we really go through a lot of hardship to fast from sunrise and sunset and abstain from all what would spoil our fasting. Now the scholar talked about this state of conscious awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being shy shy of doing a wrong thing as He's watching you at all time. So the scholar of the divine laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about it, about this state of consciousness. Imam al-Ghazali said, and he was talking, Imam al-Ghazali said that this state of constant awareness of Allah, the way you talk about it, it is actually contradict the divine of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the wisdom, as the divine laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are built on ease and simplicity. And the Prophet said that I was sent with the prophecy of ease. So you have, to see that this constant awareness of Allah can be an opposite for the divine laws, but this is again a high state of piety, a high state of being mindful of Allah. So it's a state of awareness, it's a state of consciousness only the most righteous will actually reach. Then Imam al-Ghazali said also this state of consciousness also from the divine laws of Allah, as there is two guidance for the divine laws of Allah, is things that you should do and you are permissible and lawful, and things that is better to be conscious of, is areas that you should be careful. It's lawful, but you should be careful with it, because you can go a little bit far and fall into sin or fall into shortcoming. But divine laws is divided into two things: things that you are forbidden, things are allowable and lawful, and things that you should be careful with and be conscious of, and kind of be afraid of violating it, if you will. Then Imam al-Ghazali said that for this state of consciousness of Allah, there is levels. Even there is levels, there is ranks. These ranks, the first rank is to be conscious of and shy of Allah while you are in the middle, while you are in a state of balance, so this is the first one. And the second is the state of consciousness of Allah of the righteous, which is to abstain from something lawful, you are avoiding something in case that it is unlawful. And this is the state of consciousness of the presence of Allah in your life, that you are you leave things with suspicion of possible that it is unlawful. Then the third kind, or the third level, is the state of consciousness of Allah for the piety, the one who are mindful of Allah. And this is to be conscious, to be conscious of what is not prohibited, unless you take a fatwa, if you will, just in case that you might perform or fall into sin. So it's leaving the things that you can avoid, fearing falling into something that it can be an issue or unlawful. And the fourth level is the state of consciousness of Allah of those truthful, and that's by leaving anything that you don't need. You leave anything that you don't need, period, even if it's lawful, even if it's rightful. So that state of consciousness, doing things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the intention of being in a high state of piety and a high state of goodness. So everything is done for the sake of Allah. Everything is done for seeking the faith of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything you do, this is the state of consciousness of the truthful. So that person, that truthful, is always dedicating all his deed for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So none of his deeds without the intention seeking Allah. The fifth level or rank is the state of consciousness of Allah is to stay away from what's unlawful. And Imam is saying that this is a very a low level, is to only be aware and staying away from only what is prohibited. And the sixth level, and this is the state of consciousness of Allah of the stupid, or the one who is always the one who is always in a state of doubt, if you will, not with knowledge, not with ignorance. It's just in a state of doubt at all time. And I remember saying an example of that, of somebody who does not buy anything fearing, because he is not sure that his money is lawful or unlawful, his own money. So the Imam is saying that's a state of leaving what is lawful or what is known to be rightful, just for doubt of being of unlawful source. The scholar talk about the person who actually in that state of consciousness of Allah are a group of people that combine between doing deeds and doing going through their life while they are watching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fearing the state that He is watching them, and in their life aware of their deeds. So he's actually always judging himself, if you will. So as he in that state of conscious awareness of Allah, he always repentant, he always do a deed and not sure if it's accepted or not. So it's a state that the servant know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, know the might of Allah, know the glory of Allah, the greatness of Allah, and it is reflected in his activity and in his deeds at all time. Imam was telling a story. Abdullah ibn Umar was in a pilgrimage doing his circling the Kaaba, and a man came to ask him his daughter in marriage, and he did not really respond to him, and in the end he told him, really, I did not respond to you because we were actually in a state of circling the Kaaba, watching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in a state of mind that in connection with Allah, so there was no place for him to give an answer. So those group actually in a state of balance, in a state of in the middle of the road, if you will. They accomplish deeds, and they are involved in their life, but again they are in that conscious awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he is doing his deed and living his life, but again afraid that he would be falling into sin or falling into shortcoming. So he do his deed for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or would not do the same another deed fearing Allah and being shy of Allah. So he always in a state of judging himself and looking at his deed at all time. So when this group of people who are in a moderate state, when they work on that at all time, they reach a higher level, which is the level of the truthful. So now the question will come, how we can reach that state, how we can actually do, or what to do to reach that state, to be like those righteous people. And again, how to reach the state. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said among the best manner of a person is to leave behind what it does not concern him. So if you go with that way of thinking, leaving behind what does not concern you, you will be avoiding a lot of the mishaps or a lot of the shortcomings that can take you into wrong places. So and again, to stay or to reach this kind of goodness is to leave everything that you have doubt about, that is rightful or lawful or unlawful. So again, leaving what it doesn't concern you is word of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and that what that means is to leave everything that doesn't concern you, anything you don't need, anything you don't need to know, anything you don't need to be part of. But again, the soul is always have that inquiry mind, has an inquiry nature to actually involve himself with what it does not concern him. So as we train ourselves with leaving behind what it doesn't concern us, we will reach and will be in a way of goodness. And the scholar said that state of being not away from what it doesn't concern you, is a state of being submitting to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if what He ordained and what He mandate on earth and in the heavenly sky, in complete submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to explain that a little bit more, Imam al-Kalabzi said, Islam is a character of the Muslim, and goodness is also another character of Islam. So Islam actually is a character of the Muslim, and goodness is a description of his Islam. So it's all goodness of the Muslim in his quality, not just quantity of deeds, in the quality of deed, if you will. So when you declare yourself to be a Muslim, you are in a state of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are in a state of total submission to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you are in a state of submission at all things, in what concern you and what doesn't concern you. So you always leave others, you leave others alone. You are not seeking to know about the secret of others. You are not seeking to interfere in the life of others in any way. So you are in a state again of goodness, that you don't look for anybody's shortcoming and to leave again behind what it does not concern you. So you spare others your evil, if you will. You spare others your interference in their business. So that Muslim is what other Muslim actually are safe from his tongue and from his hand, because he does not interfere in their business and does not seek to know anything doesn't concern him. So you always leave things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You only care about what is obvious, but what is hidden, it is not your business, is not something you should be concerned about. The story of Ibn Umar was actually have a lot of slaves. He told them, whoever of you will go pray and worship Allah and fast, we will actually let him go and free him. So all of them, they went to the mosque and they started fasting and praying, and he actually freed them. People came to him and tell him, Ibn Umar, they are fooling you. And he said, it's okay as long as they are fooling me for the sake of Allah. So he does not care about their inside or their internals. All he cares about is their obvious, which is praying and fasting. So he did not seek to know what their intention. He just went with what they do, which is fast and pray, which is promised them if they do, he would actually set them free. And the Imam is saying the only condition or the only state or situation that you actually interfere is to interfere if you see something unlawful happening, if is to endorse goodness and to forbid evil. You have to talk, you have to talk, and you have to interfere to endorse goodness and to forbid evil. So you always interfere for the sake of Allah with sincerity and love, is not to do it for any personal gain or very personal reasons. And Imam is saying the one who advises others, he has to be trustworthy, kindly in his advice, only seeking their well-being, only seeking the face of Allah, not any other reasons. So at that state, all others will be safe of your hand and safe of your tongue, and that is the best description of a Muslim. And the scholars talked about, with regard to his own self, if that person was having a good state of faith, he actually will deliver his soul from any mishaps or any bad things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah At-Tawbah, what can be translated, that Allah bought from the believer their soul and their money in return for heaven. So as you sell your soul, you sell and you give up your money for Allah, the reward and the return is heaven. So if you want heaven, then you have to deliver the price, and the price again is your money and your soul, dedicated for the sake of Allah. So the Imam is given an example of that righteous person in a state of buying and selling. He always deliver what he is selling in the best of way, and in the best of manners, and in the best of condition, and this is as he sell, and the same thing as he buy. He is kind, he is generous, he is truthful. and Imam is referring to the Prophet Ibrahim, may God be pleased with him, as he actually delivered his soul to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He sold his soul to Allah, and he commanded his sons and Jacob to do the same thing, is to deliver and to deliver his soul to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Imam is telling a story of a scholar who said that he is always in a state of readiness for bed. He is always ready for death. He is ready to deliver his soul at the moment of death at all time. And to do this, he is actually leaving again what it does not concern him, and put emphasis on what it concern him. So he is in that state of readiness to deliver his soul when he dies. So he is at all time ready, at all time aware in deeds and in sayings. It's not just the conscious awareness of death is the word to say. It's a state of existence that when you die, you're always ready to deliver your soul and inshallah get in return what you sold to Allah, which is your soul for heaven. So that is the covenant that Prophet Ibrahim was commanding us, that Allah bought from the believer their soul and their money with their in return to heaven. So being in a state of complete submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not contradicting or not questioning any of what Allah willed for you, is that state of selling your soul, that state of being in complete submission to Allah. So the person who does this, and does in maybe in little deeds, is the best in the eyes of Allah, because it is the quality of his deed, not the quantity of his deeds. And also among the best of his submission to Allah, that he does not question anything, and he does not approach anything that is doubtful, that is it rightful or lawful or unlawful, and always stay with what is lawful, and judge himself at all time. So when your faith is complete and perfect, you are not questioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in what He ordained, and you are leaving behind anything doesn't concern you, and again you are acting upon what covenant that you made is to sell to Allah your soul and your money in return for heaven. And it was narrated that Yunus said that there is nothing I encountered more than this state of conscious awareness of Allah. And Hassan, another scholar, told him that is easy for me. I actually it's very simple for me to reach this state of consciousness. And he told him, how you do that? He said, I left everything. I left everything that does not concern me. Anything does not concern me, I leave it behind, and with that I became more conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when the best again of delivering what you sold to Allah is to worship Allah in the best of way, worshiping Him as if you see Him, and if you don't see Him, He does see you. It's a state of a heart that in complete awareness, in conscious awareness of the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that will actually lead you to that state of goodness and that state of righteousness. And to train yourself to be in that level of goodness, it was narrated that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, send Muaz to a group of people, and he asked the Prophet, command me, O Prophet, before I go. He told him, spread peace and feed the food, and be conscious, and be conscious of Allah. Be conscious of Allah watching you, as if you are as if you fear or you are aware of somebody who was influence and influence in your life. And if a situation happen that you will be bad, always be good, and perfect and improve your manners as much as you can. So to be in that state of training yourself of being conscious of Allah is to always spread peace, always feed people the food as much as you can, and always be conscious of Allah as if you are standing in front of a person of position or a person of influence, and improve your manners as much as you can. It was narrated in a lot of books that this command came, that a man came to the Prophet and told him, command me, O Prophet. And the Prophet said, I command you to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you fear you fear a man of high value in your people, is to always be mindful of Allah as if you are standing over an influential person. You are in the best behavior. So we always in that state of being conscious of the presence of Allah in our life, watching us and aware of us at all time. And we'll continue next, inshallah. Maybe not next week, the Imam might not be here, but we will continue inshallah maybe the week after that. Assalamu alaikum.